When Iziarik awoke, he immediately froze in fear and surprised, a dark blob resting on his chest. Once his eyes focused, he realized it was a bird. Investigating this creature, Iziarik slowly brought his hand from underneath the cover and gently pet the feathery critter. With each stroke of his hand, he regained his normancy, lifting his other arm out as he stretched, helping to shake the sleepiness away. Noticing his arms, he can't help but to think they look a bit thinner. As Iziarik glanced back down at the bird, he noticed Sister Mary asleep down by his foot side. While he's slowly sitting upright, gently holding the bird who slowly wakes, Iziarik props himself up against the headboard. The bird begins softly cawing while gently being placed in his lap. "Hello, boy or girl. What are you doing in here?" Iziarik spoken with a curious tone which was only replied with another caw. Before he could propose another question, he noticed Sister Mary starting to wake up. She was mumbling while sluggishly sitting upright on the opposite end of the bed, yawning loudly. "It seems you met your new friend. What time is it?" Mumbling more to herself while glancing out the window, the sun was already over the horizon. The sight was enough to wake her up fully as she hopped out of bed and stretched. "Time for lunch," she announced cheerfully before her tone changed to more stern and demanding that left no room for negotiation. "And time for you to be in big trouble, little mister. Without holding suspense, you won't be training anymore without my say-so and supervision." Seeing Sister Mary approaching Iziarik, he held on to the little bird once more while she picked him up, beginning to carry him down to the kitchen, all the while peppering his face with kisses. Now seeing opportunity to speak, Iziarik started to bombard Sister Mary with questions about why she was crying, what he did to his chest, why he is in trouble, and more. Those questions was vaguely answered but finally silenced when Sister Mary finished with a light, harsh, demanding tone, and her concern and worry filled each word. "You shouldn't be worried about such. You could have hurt yourself so badly, if not worse. You're very reckless. Far too young, Iziarik. I will teach you a few things, but you are not allowed to do anything without my say-so." Sister Mary tried her best to end her words with a more warm, loving tone with Iziarik sitting on the counter. Playfully she pat him on the head with the back of the wooden spoon, looking him in the eyes intensely. Iziarik let out a deep, defeated sigh, rubbing his head where he was struck, even though it wasn't painful. "Yes, Mother Mary, I won't study on my own without your permission. Can I still learn how to read?" Iziarik was prepared to accept any answer, but a small smile quickly formed the moment he saw Sister Mary nod her head, even though her attention shifted back towards the food. "Yes, I will still teach you how to read, and eventually a little math. But your primary job is to be a kid, so things are going to be done differently around here starting today." She spoke much cheerfully and excitedly. Although he was curious, Iziarik no longer asked any questions, patiently waiting on the counter while analyzing the bird he held close to his face. He knew most animals tend to run away from him, mainly because he tried to chase them away from the garden. Thinking of food, he decided to put the bird down and hop off the counter, making his way to the table to get ready, the bird tip-tapping to the edge of the counter before leaping off and gliding all the way to the table to follow. When the food was ready, instead of Sister Mary bringing the plates to the dining table, she walked into the living room and put them on the coffee table before returning to the kitchen and repeating the process with the drinks. Confused, Iziarik decided to hop down and head into the living room. When Sister Mary returned for the third time to deliver room, she had a bowl of bird feeder and placed it right down next to the rest. The bird didn't hesitate to start eating, Iziarik still watching as Sister Mary got settled down and turned on the TV. Iziarik gasped hit surprised as she flipped through some channels before landing on some cartoons. Now you gets to watch TV and play outside. No helping with gardening or anything, just fun time before we study at night. Now let's eat up, she proclaimed before she began digging into her own food. Iziarik was speechless with excitement. He saw a few TVs the few times when they go in town, but he never had a good look. After his shock lesson just enough for him to speak, he couldn't help but the comment on everything, only leaving Sister Mary giggling as she replied, all the while reminding him to eat before it gets cold. After they was done eating, she began cleaning all of the plates and bird feeder, kissing him on the forehead before she began walking to the door, speaking quickly along the way. "Oh, and take good care of that bird, and don't give her a name if you didn't already, and be ready to send her on the way if you don't like her by the end of tonight. Also be warned, if you name them it will be a lot harder to get rid of them. You will learn more when you go to school, but they get attached easily, so get to know them today while you're playing. Okay, that's all." Ending with an extra cheerful squeak to her voice before heading out to the garden for a while before heading to the church's kitchen. Meanwhile, Iserik couldn't respond since he was too busy processing her fast words. After a moment of silence, he turned towards the bird, who was looking at him intensely from the coffee table. He reached out and gently stroked her head down her back. No names, watch TV and have fun. Hushly spoken more towards himself. Thinking what to do, a light bulb lit up in his head, hopping to his feet and immediately start running back to his room. Without hesitation, the bird flew right behind him. When he looked behind him to see the bird, a spark lit up in him, making him completely forget his attendant purpose. Giggling as he begins running around the house while the bird follows, Iserik turned it into a game, trying to see how far he can get and if he can hide. After some time, he ran into his room where he remembered the original reason he started running. Panting heavily and trying to catch his breath while the bird flew and landed on his shoulder. "Oh yeah, I was going to show you my toys." Spoken in between breaths. Feeling a bit exhausted, he turned it into a tour, talking with the bird while describing everything in his room before going to Sister Mary's room, then the bathroom, and eventually the rest of the house. Then he returned back to the kitchen for drinks and snacks, scooting the chair to the counter to stand on, reaching for one of the plastic cup and bowl before using the jug in the refrigerator to get some water, to fill them both up enough, grabbing some berries and putting them in the bowl. Afterwards, he gently bring the bowl and cup to the living room to sit back down. Sipping his water while watching TV all the while, the bird drinks and snack on the berries beside him. After some time passed, Iserik couldn't help but to think about what Sister Mary said about training. He wanted to poke and prod and observe what he did with his manor heart, doing his best to resist the urge to disobey her. Most of his questions was answered the same, having to wait until school, remembering she said he would have to wait until around 11 to go to school and get answers he wants. His solace was that Sister Mary did say she will still teach him some things related to it, just with a lot of restrictions. With that, it was easy to brush away the urge and rise back to his feet, gently holding the bird as he carry her outside, glancing up at the sky and noticing the sun is halfway down until dark. Not knowing what to do, Iserik did exactly what he never done before, explore. Gently putting the bird on his head, he began roaming around the garden, enjoying the fresh air, randomly talking to the bird about all the things in their garden, sometimes getting a caw in reply. Eventually, Iserik make his way to the big hill in the back of the farm with a big tree. He thought about climbing it, but decided it was too big for now. Instead, he looked out to the horizon over the fence and their home at the town they so often visit. Even from here, still didn't look all that grand, almost like it's abandoned and left half destroyed. To the left was a place Iserik never been to, inside the giant wall that reached just above the horizon. Remembering what Sister Mary said, that's where the main residents live, behind the second walls, and that they're actually inside of the first circle. The first wall was just too far away to see. Iserik figured that's where school would be, since he rarely see kids in town. Sister Mary says they only can visit once in a while. Lost in his thoughts up until the moment the sky slowly darkens, light only peering between the trees on the horizon. The moon shining more brightly down, his thoughts slowly fade while gazing up at it. With a clear mind, he gently pick up the bird and hold her near his face. Mother Mary says I should probably get rid of you if I don't like you. I never thought about having a pet. Do I want a bird? A dog? Rabbit? Would I have to wait to go to school to pick another pet? You did choose me. Mother says, is it wrong to say no? Izioric questioned the bird, but also to himself with a sense of confusion. Only a short, slightly soft caw was a response that he couldn't quite make sense. Izioric glanced back up at the moon as if seeking for guidance. Without him realizing at first, the bird as well looked up to the moon, stretching her wings that covers the view from Izioric. I remember a word from the book. I'll call you Ciela. Little heaven and sky, I think Mother said it means. He declared with a warm smile that was immediately replied with a loud, excited coo with approval from Ciela. She turned her gaze towards his own. In the next moment, Izioric's mana energy started to flow from him to her. Sparkles of red, green, and white. Ciela's own blue energy transferred over to him. This process lasted few minutes as they both looked in awe. Izioric didn't feel anything different at first, but slowly a second awareness formed in his mind. After focusing on it, he began to realize its Ciela presence. He could tell exactly where she was beyond by simply looking. He could even tell that she was getting a bit hungry. Meanwhile, Ciela's energy was gradually turning from blue to green with little speckles of red and white. As the energies continued to flow back and forth between them both, Izioric's own energy began to lessen. More of his green energy was prioritized. Eventually they became identical between them both, intertwining with each other before their energies combining to form a line that connected them till it faded. That was a strange feeling. Are you in my head now? Are you hungry? Izioric asked with certainty and a tone of curiosity. Ciela's eyes widened before she bounced excitedly on his arm with a loud caw. Izioric's eyes immediately widened as well. He could now understand that intent behind her noises. He could tell what she meant, but there wasn't really any words to connect the feeling. Looking at her with a growing fascination while beginning to stand up. Let's go get you some food. It is getting a bit late. Mother Mary should be done with the church any moment, Izioric declared. He began to place her onto his head. Even while Ciela wasn't making any noise, he still could feel some level of intent. It was much less as if not fully directed towards him. Instead, Izioric followed the intent and held Ciela up high into the air. Without hesitation, she began to fly towards the house. So strange. It's like I can tell she wanted to fly. I can still feel her in my head as she gets farther away. So strange. Maybe Mother Mary knows. Spoken quietly to himself. Walking back down the hill and towards his home. He eventually started to run when hearing Sister Mary call out for him. After responding to confirm that he's coming, it took no time at all before arriving right at the porch. Even though he ran only for a little, he felt extremely exhausted. Just another reminder how skinny and weak he is now. Now don't go pushing yourself too hard. Don't forget what that curiosity did to you, little scholar. Sister Mary teased a reminder with a smile that reached her eyes, giggling as Izioric ran and jumped right into her arms, sharing her laughter. We're hungry, and I have questions, he announced, hugging her tight. Meanwhile, Celia comes down from the sky after roaming around, landing right on his head. Sister Mary glancing at her for a moment. We? Ah, yes, I see now. Yes, we got a lot to talk about. At first, let's eat. She spoke softly while she carried him inside, sitting him right on the counter before starting to cook. Sister Mary even allowed Izioric to ask questions while she's cooking. They talked about what they did today and what happened when naming Ciela. Izioric learned it was a familiar bonding that can share thoughts and senses. When the food was done, they sat down in the living room at the coffee table, all three of them enjoying their big meals. After Sister Mary was done eating, she laid back on the couch as she relaxes like usual. Once everybody was done, Izioric and Ciela continued watching TV a little longer before Sister Mary gets up and start cleaning the dishes. Once that was done, she brought him back to the library to continue teaching how to read. Ciela was perched on his shoulder, looking at the words, trying to learn as well. The reading lesson was a little shorter than the first time before Sister Mary picked Izioric and brought him to his room. They sat on a soft rug in the middle. All right, Iz, time for a little basic mana training. A few things normal people do immediately after forming Mana Heart. You're going to need to learn how to conceal your Mana Heart and also basic ability triggering. You have two, green and red. After learning this, then you're free to do as you please. as long as you don't fiddle with your mana heart. Sister Mary spoke firmly. She began a small conversation, making sure Azurik can sense the mana. Afterwards, she began explaining the overall process of surrounding the walls of his cavern with his own mana, like putting on a layer of paint, practicing concentrating until you can keep it on the walls subconsciously. Azurik didn't get it right away, but he understood the concept, so Sister Mary moved on to the next. She told Azurik to focus on the red color mana and try to sense what it can do. While doing so, he felt it just better help him since his whole body. This he explained. Sister Mary thought for a moment before speaking to clarify. With this, you lack too much knowledge to make it useful. It comes from your father. The more you understand your body, the stronger and more useful this will be. For now, it will probably help you see better, get stronger easier, and minor things like sharper, stronger teeth, since you love biting so much. Azurik took a moment to process what she said before they moved on to the next. The green energy. The more he focused, the more of a feeling he got of something fake. Something there but not really. He didn't quite understand it, something that was obvious by the look of his face. He soon felt it requires something else. When he opened his eyes and began looking around for something, Sister Mary held out a silver coin. "Here, try it on this." She smiled eagerly, enjoying watching the process of his mind trying to figure things out. "Thank you." Politely responding, he held up the silver coin. He closed his eyes once again while imagining the green energy doing something. The green energy from his body slowly traveled through his arm until reaching his fingertips. Azurik opened his eyes while concentrating on the coin. The energy started to coat and soak into the coin before suddenly, right next to it, another silver coin appeared floating in the air. It was see-through and with a green glow that almost hid the silver, flickering like an unsteady image. Eventually, the bad illusion of a silver coin vanished. "Whoa, that was kind of cool. So it makes fake things?" Spoken through excited confusion, smiling up at Sister Mary. "Yes, pretty much. You get that from your mother. As you can see, unless you have a very clear image and a very good concentration, it can be very easy to tell it's a fake." Sister Mary clarified. She was going to say more until she noticed another badly illusion of a coin floating in the air, this time coming right from Ciela. It quickly vanished soon after as well. Azurik couldn't hold in his excitement as he cheered. "You can use it too? Awesome!" Azurik held her up high while looking at her. Ciela made excited caws and coos, flapping her wings to further express glee. "Yes, from what you told me about your bond. You didn't simply bond, you offered to share her your energy in full, and she accepted it. If she had any abilities of her own, you would have a chance of getting them as well." While explaining, Sister Mary smiled as she watched them together. Then she began to stand up, brushing herself off. "That's pretty much all of the basics. You can practice your abilities throughout the day, and we can just focus on your reading and math at night. Now time for you to go to bed." While listening to Sister Mary's words, Azurik began getting up as well. Tossing Ciela into the air, she began flying to rest on the safety bars of his bed. After taking quick showers, she helped tuck him into bed, Ciela snuggling again close by his head. After saying their good nights, Sister Mary kissed them both on the head before returning into her room, leaving both doors cracked open. Azurik said his own good nights to Ciela, who softly cooed and responded. Slowly, they all fell asleep peacefully throughout the night. When morning time came, they began their new daily routine that would barely change for many years. Azurik and Ciela would wake up and make their way downstairs, where they find Sister Mary humming and singing softly to herself. Azurik and Ciela would sit down by the TV until food arrived, and they all eat their big breakfast that slowly helped regain Azurik's strength, although he always remained a little bit thinner than he did before the event of gaining a mana heart. After breakfast, and despite Sister Mary's objection, all three of them went into the garden to help grow and harvest food. Along with his own ability training, he also tried to learn Sister Mary's gardening ability. With his mana sight and a lot of questions, he understood how Sister Mary influenced the garden. Even with that, he never got close to using it as an ability, although it did help him be a better gardener. After gardening, Izuric and Ciela would watch TV, play around the house and or outside, as well as practice their abilities. After a few months, when he properly managed to maintain the concealment around his cavern, they were allowed to return to the church, where he was warmly greeted for his return. He didn't always go to church after gardening, often choosing to practice and play with his illusionary ability, but it was normal to help out in the church. After church, if Izuric and Ciela were both with Sister Mary, they would all eat after serving everyone else. If they didn't join, Sister Mary would make a nice quick meal after the buyers left and she returned back home. After eating, Sister Mary would take a shower and relax for a few hours. After Sister Mary relaxed, she would spend time with Izuric and Ciela, playing games, watching TV, or just relaxing together. After spending some time together, Sister Mary would start her lessons once again, teaching them both how to read, as well as teaching Izuric a bit of math until she thought he was efficient enough with both. When he was, the study time was spent for a little more training with his abilities, if not relaxing more with Sister Mary. After all was done for the day, they each would go to their own room for another peaceful slumber under the moonlight. Month by month as time passed, Izuric's and Ciela's illusionary abilities quickly grew. Izuric slowly learned how to maintain 6 perfect illusions comfortably. Ciela managed to do 3 times as much with 18 illusions of her body. When trying to do more, exhaustion and pain quickly followed. There were several flaws with their illusions, such as being stationary and not making any sounds, but with their illusions, it boosted their training and fun a lot more, playing hide-and-seek, trying to find the real ones of each other. As Izuric's reading improved with time, he eventually turned his attention back to the ability menu to have a proper look, thinking to summon the blue transparent rectangular screen once more. Ding ability screen, title Sentient Evolution, Minor Awakened, Mental, Sentient, Physical, Sentient, DNA Seed, None. Ability count 2, Inherit abilities 2, first inherited ability Mind and Body, second inherit ability Illusionary. Izuric noticed one change, his physical improved. While trying to focus on what he was looking at, a few additional information popped up, labeling what Izuric could only describe as different levels of progress. Primal, Sentient, Awakened, Chosen, Divinity, Ascension, and Monarch. While focusing closer on each individual progression, no additional information was shown. When Izuric focused on his abilities, on the other hand, more information was provided. Mind and Body, a mutation combining the individual abilities of mind and the ability of body. The ability Mind and Body gives the owner greater mental and physical control and manipulation of one's own mind and body. This ability has a strong affinity with mental and physical traits. This ability can be self-taught and a chance to be inherited. Illusionary, the primary ability to make intangible creations. Secondary effect, the ability to create constructs after increasing the density. This ability has a strong affinity with mental traits. This ability can be self-taught and a chance to be inherited. After reading his abilities, Izuric had a better understanding of what he can do. Although there were no descriptions, he had a good idea of what mental and physical were. Given the more he used his illusionary ability, the more tired and exhausted he mentally became, as well as giving headaches. Despite having a barrier as a manor heart, Izuric never thought of creating a barrier until that moment. Giving it a quick try, he realized it was far more challenging to create and maintain a barrier regardless on how small it was, deciding to make it his primary training and leaving illusions as game not to take so seriously. Ciela had an even harder time with the barriers. Year by year, time ticked by. Izuric and Ciela slowly stopped going to the church. He never quite understood the religion, deciding it would be better to spend their time doing extra work in the garden, using all they learned. They weren't as skilled as Sister Mary, but with the overtime it freed up a lot more time for her, leaving them more time to bond in the morning. Izuric and Ciela's illusionary ability made a significant improvements. Although they could create far more illusions of themselves comfortably, They decided it's more effective to keep the original 6 and 18. The decision between quality or quantity, they choose the quality, gradually able to make their illusions move all at once. Eventually, even making them speak and caw. The hardest thing to copy was the slight noises, such as walking or breathing. It was the main way they could spot the fakes while playing hide-and-seek. Izurik and Ciela also learned something by accident when experimenting. The ability to see through your illusion's eyes as if they was your own. Izurik learned ease. It was very easy, embarrassingly easy, to spot the illusion when using mana sight, easily spotting the one not made of mana as the real one. This led to Izurik and Ciela practicing concealing not only their mana heart but their whole body just beneath the skin, as well as creating illusions of not only the outside but the whole insides of their bodies. The extra improvements took a while to get comfortable with, but all the more believable. Even Sister Mary was having a hard time finding them. When training his barrier, Izurik eventually managed several hexagons together to create a transparent green barrier a few feet in front of him, managing to cover his entire body. The problem lies with how long he can hold it, managing a few seconds before collapsing and can withstand a few blows before breaking. Barely over a second if he was actively used illusions as well and only surviving one blow. After 5 years, Izurik was now 11 and shaking with fear, realizing the time has come to go to school. He thought he wanted to go to school to learn, but he quickly realized just how long he'll be away from Sister Mary, the only family he knew.